Okay, here on the Rich Van Tassel channel, giving you the recap of Week 10 in the NFL schedule. Doing audio again. I'm starting to like the audio a lot more, but we'll do videos as well in the future, but certainly audios for these. I want to, keep going back and forth until I tinker exactly how I'm going to do the videos. The sound quality isn't always the best, but with the audio it does work. So we're going with that today. And now on to the games. The first game, the Detroit Lions winning for the first time in 24 years in Wisconsin as they beat the Green Bay Packers 18-16. The Lions moved to 2-7. The Packers have dropped their third straight game to drop to 6-3. For the Lions, Matthew Stafford, 24 of 38, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. They did not run the ball well at all. That's the Lions. Joique Bell, 14 for carries for 17 yards. Amir Abdullah, 5 for 15. Golden Tate had 1 run for 11 yards. He's a wide receiver, so that's a problem when your best runner is your wide receiver. Altogether, 26 rushes for 45 yards, which is 1.7 yards per carry. In the receiving game, Calvin Johnson, effective 6 catches for 81 yards, no touchdowns. Golden Tate, 4 for 52. Lance Moore, 3 for 29, and a touchdown. Matthew Stafford did fumble the ball once. It was not lost. They only had 3 sacks, which is pretty good, but not spectacular. Amir Abdullah torched them in the kick return game. He was really the difference in this game. He had a 104-yard touchdown return. The other was a return of 30 yards, so that's pretty good for a second return. Even if all your returns were of 30 yards, that'd be good. But 104-yarder was really the difference in the game. For the Packers, or excuse me, Detroit did not have any interceptions. For the Packers, Aaron Rodgers put it up 61 times, only completed 35 passes, 333 yards, 2 touchdowns, did not throw any interceptions, so that was good. But still, that's a lot of throws, even for Aaron Rodgers with all those targets. That 61 times is a lot. James Starks in the running game, 15 for 42. Aaron Rodgers had 2 runs for 8 yards. Overall, 18 for 47, so there was really not a lot of running at all. Not even 100 yards combined between the two teams. Davante Adams in the receiving game, 10 receptions for 79 yards, so that's a lot of receptions, but only not even 8 yards per catch. Justin Perillo, 5 for 58 and a touchdown. Jared Abbrederis, 4 for 57. Abbrederis did fumble, it was not lost. No sacks for the Packers, that's big right there, and Clinton Dix did have an interception. So the Packers were +1 in the turnover department. However, they still lost this game. That's what happens when you give up a big kick return. It happens. Micah Hyde himself, returning kicks for the Packers, was not too bad. 3 for 78, so that's 26 yards per return, which is pretty good. I don't know how the conditions were. It certainly wasn't that cold of a weekend, but if they were getting the ball deep in the end zone on the kickoffs, that would affect field position. Detroit, we discussed that. I was tempted to go out on a limb and pick the Lions. I couldn't do it in good faith, but it doesn't surprise me that they finally got a win. Green Bay now drops 3 straight games. They head into Minnesota next week, who are now 7-2 off 5 straight wins. So that becomes pivotal for the Packers to end their slide and get rolling against the Minnesota Vikings next week. So Detroit, they just got to build on this and finish out their season professionally. Green Bay's got to figure it out and come back strong as they travel to Wisconsin next week. Okay, up next, the Cowboys lost their 7th straight game without Tony Romo to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was 10-6. Matt Castle, 19 of 29, 186 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Darren McFadden came back to earth for the Cowboys running the ball, 17 for 32. Christian Michael, 3 for 8, overall 21 of 42. Dez Bryant, 5 receptions, 45 yards, had a couple big drops. Jason Witten, 5 for 42. Terrence Williams, 2 for 33. Cole Beasley, only 1 catch. Matt Castle fumbled, but it was not lost. Dallas, only 2 sacks again. They did have interceptions. They got a fourth quarter interception. Jeff Heath had both of them. They were getting the turnovers. However, it did not come to fruition. 1 kick return by Rod Smith was 26 yards. Terrence Williams had 1 that was 9. That was the last kickoff of the game, though, he was in to try to make things happen. For the Buccaneers, Jameis Winston, 22 of 39, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Doug Martin, 18 carries for 63 yards. Altogether, the team was 26 of 84 with 1 touchdown. That's 3.2 yards per carry in the run game. Mike Evans had a big day, 8 for 126. Was really the only receiver who did anything. Doug Martin, who's a running back, was the next highest receiver, 4 receptions for 40 yards. Tampa Bay did not lose their fumble. They had 3 sacks and 1 interception that sealed the game late. Nothing of note in the kick game. Both field goal kickers missed 1 field goal. Dan Bailey was 2 for 3. Connor Barth 1 for 2. Dan Bailey usually very reliable and came to bite the Cowboys. I do want to make a side note with this game. Again, I could just sound like a bitter Cowboy fan. However, I felt that the call on the Jameis Winston fumble of a hold downfield was absurd. Jameis Winston is a runner in that situation, and contact down the field should not be called in that situation. It would have ended the game, almost certainly for the Cowboys. They would have won. And this is another call. They had the holding on the screen pass against the Giants that took 4 points off the board. You had this call yesterday. You had the touchdown that clearly wasn't against the Seahawks. Now, granted, the Seahawks probably would have scored the touchdown anyway, but I mean, you got to look at this 7-game losing streak, and these calls have to be addressed somehow. I mean, I know it's easy to say that if the Cowboys, you can't complain about officiating when you're losing, but you really can complain about officiating when you're losing. I mean, yesterday is a direct loss to that call. The Giants game, certainly I felt that those 4 points were pivotal. So, I mean, the Cowboys, hey, they're technically in the division. You might even win that division at 7-9. I don't know what they're going to do now that Romo comes back. I'm not expecting much. Their defense simply cannot close games out. And Tampa Bay is 4-5. It's going to be hard to get a wild card in this conference for a team like Tampa Bay that's under 500. You have 2 teams like the Packers and the Falcons who are both above 500. But certainly only 2 games out of a wild card, so they got to keep improving. Jameis Winston was doing better in the turnover department. He's got to get back on track to doing that, keeping his turnovers down because he had a tough turnover day yesterday. All right, the Carolina Panthers moved to 9-0. They defeated the Tennessee Titans, who dropped to 2-7. Cam Newton could have been his best game of the season, 21-26, very good completion percentage, 217 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. Jonathan Stewart running the ball efficiently, 22 of 91, that's 4.1 yards per carry. Cam Newton 9 of 23. Both Stewart and Cam Newton had rushing touchdowns. Altogether 34 of 119, that's under 4 yards per carry at 3.5, and the 2 touchdowns. Greg Olsen continues to be Cam Newton's favorite target without Kelvin Benjamin this season. 8 receptions for 80 yards. Ted Ginn Jr., 4 for 45. Devin Funchess, the rookie, only 2 for 41. He's really got to start to step up. They're going to need him. Kawana Short recovered a fumble for Carolina. They only had 1 sack. Kurt Coleman had an interception. And nothing of note in the kick return game. Marcus Mariota, 16-24, 185, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Dexter McCluster, 3 for 25 in the running game and a touchdown. Marcus Mariota, 5 for 24. Overall, 21 of 64, which is 3 yards per carry. That included Antonio Andrews, though, rushing 11 times for 8 yards, so didn't even record a yard per carry. They had 1 touchdown in the running game. That was McCluster's. Delaney Walker continues to be Marcus Mariota's favorite target, 3 for 52, the tight end. So the rookie is looking for a security blanket. Justin Hunter, 4 for 47. And Dexter McCluster out of the backfield, 4 for 27. Marcus Mariota fumbled twice, did not lose any of them. Dexter McCluster fumbled once, and it was lost. 5 sacks for Tennessee, so you got to wonder how they struggled so much. But Cam Newton does hold the ball a lot because he's tough to bring down. Dexter McCluster returned 5 kicks for 86 yards, so not too bad, but not 20 yards per return, so nothing great of note there. Carolina, we discussed it. They're now 9-0. Cam Newton, if he starts playing very well like this and much more efficiently than he has been playing. I mean, before it was just simply he was finding ways to win. Now, if he can start playing really efficient, he had a 114.3 passer rating yesterday, then Carolina can really be dangerous. Tennessee, they did protect Marcus Mariota, only gave up 1 sack. He did have an interception, did not lose a fumble, so those are things that are going to come as he continues to improve. You'd like to keep him healthy and upright the rest of the season. Don't want to get him hit too hard. And that's just really what they're going to try to do. They're going to take what they have. Who knows how many guys from this roster are going to be there in the future. but they're going to see and finish out the string of the season and develop Mark Mariota. That's what they have to look forward to this year. Next up, the Chicago Bears, who are quietly now 4-5, beat the St. Louis Rams, who dropped to 4-5 on the season. Jay Cutler for the Bears, very good game. He's really cutting down his turnovers. I'm eating some crow with Jay Cutler, 19 of 24, 258 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Running the ball, Jeremy Langford, 20 for 73 and a touchdown. Kadeem Carey, 14 of 56. Jay Cutler, 3 for 24, altogether 37 of 153 for 4.1 yards per carry. Jeremy Langford out of the backfield had 7 receptions for 129 yards. Zach Miller, 5 for 107. Langford had a touchdown. Zach Miller had 2. Alshon Jeffrey, 3 for 23. Mark Mariani fumbled and was lost. Kadeem Carey also fumbled and was lost. And Shane McClellan recovered a fumble. So 2 lost fumbles, 1 recovered fumble for the Bears. Only 1 sack. Willie Young had an interception. He returned it 39 yards. And I would assume that Mariani's fumble happened in the punt return game, but I don't know. It could have been either one, the punt or the kick return. Nick Foles, again, you got to wonder why they would choose Nick Foles, even though they had Sam Bradford. It seems like they just traded one turnover-prone quarterback for another. That's the Rams. He was 17 of 36, 200 yards, 0 touchdown, 1 interception. Johnny Hekker threw a pass. Todd Gurley held in check, 12 carries for 45 yards. It's 3.8 per carry and 1 touchdown. Trey Mason, 6 for 31, which is 5.2 yards per carry. And Tavon Austin had 3 rushes for 18 yards. So altogether, 21 of 94, which is 4.5 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Todd Gurley, 3 for 44 in the receiving game. Ryan Quick, 1 for 37. So they were not throwing the ball well, and their offense really didn't play well at all. Trey Mason lost the fumble. They did recover the 2. 2 sacks, no interceptions, and only 1 kick return of note. So Chicago, like we said, quietly now 4-5. Again, as we just went over with Tampa Bay, 4-5. It's tough to look at a team that's under 500 right now and say that they can make the playoffs, because you do have the Packers and you do have the Falcons, but the Falcons are going backwards. The Packers, while they have lost 3 straight, I think are securely going to make the playoffs, and they're probably going to win the division anyway. But you're only 2 out, so you just got to keep striving, and I got to give Chicago credit for coming back. St. Louis, again, up and down all season. The roller coaster continues, and I think that's pretty much indicative of the quarterback play with Nick Foles. All right, the New Orleans Saints got pounded by the Washington Redskins. The Saints dropped to 4-6. Washington Redskins improved to 4-5. For the Saints, Drew Brees, 19 of 28, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Mark Ingram, 5 carries for 77 yards. That's 15.4 yards per carry. Tim Hightower, 11 for 46. C.J. Spiller, 8 for 24. Altogether, 25 of 158, so I'm surprised they were able to run the ball that much and that well, considering how much they were down in this game. Brandon Cooks continues to become one of Drew Brees' favorite targets. 5 receptions for 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. T.J. Graham, 2 for 25. Marcus Colston, 3 for 22. C.J. Spiller fumbled. It was not lost. 3 sacks for the Saints, no interceptions. C.J. Spiller, 3 returns for 59 yards in the kick game. That's not too bad. Marcus Murphy, nothing of note in the punt return game. Kirk Cousins, probably his best game this season, 20 of 25, and could possibly be his best game of his career. 324 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Alfred Morris, 15 for 92. Matt Jones, 11 for 56. He's, trying to get back to where he was when he surprised everyone. Matt Jones, that is. Chris Thompson, 2 for 54. Overall, 31 rushes for 213 yards. That's almost 7 yards per carry. It's 6.9. Didn't have any touchdowns, but they were running the ball very well. And Washington has really stepped their running game up this year. Matt Jones out of the backfield. He had a big day yesterday. 3 receptions for 131 yards. That's 43.7 yards per reception and a touchdown. Jamison Crowder, 4 for 60 and a touchdown. Matt Jones, wow, that's really impressive for a running back. He must have broken some screens. Deshaun Jackson, 2 for 44. Jordan Reed, 3 for 29 and 2 touchdowns. 2 sacks for Washington. 2 interceptions were Deshaun Goldson and Perry Riley Jr. Rashad Ross in the kick return game, 14.5 yards per return on 2 returns, so nothing spectacular there. And nothing in the punt return game. So, New Orleans, they're really starting to fade now. They've struggled. Their defense has been terrible this year. Drew Brees a bit up and down. He's been dealing with injuries. Washington now 4-5. The Giants are on bye next week, so they can really they can essentially tie, and I believe they own the tiebreaker if they win next week against an undefeated Carolina team. So they're right in that division, with the Giants not putting anyone away. Kirk Cousins, if he can continue to play like this, then certainly you would have to like their chances. But I will remain to be seen with Kirk Cousins. I'm not quite sold on him yet. The Saints defense is nothing to write home again about, so I wouldn't be too encouraged by it. But we'll see what happens. If this can build his confidence, he will certainly look to take off from here. And if they can run the ball the way they did today, then the more likely they are to continue to improve. So we'll see how that goes. But Washington right back in the thick of things. The Miami Dolphins over the Philadelphia Eagles, 20-19. For the visiting Dolphins, who now moved to 4-5. Ryan Tannehill, 21 of 36, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jay Ajayi, the rookie, 6 rushes for 48 yards. Lamar Miller, 16 for 43. Altogether, 26 of 99, which is 3.8 yards per carry. Efficient, but not great. Rashard Matthews, the best receiver, 5 for 93. Jarvis Landry, 7 for 52 and a touchdown. Lamar Miller had 6 receptions for 50 yards, and he also had a touchdown. Ryan Tannehill fumbled. It ended up in a safety, so it did not technically recover, but it did result to points. 4 sacks for Miami. Rashad Jones had an interception in the end zone that really sealed it. Damian Williams, 21 yards per return on 2 returns, so they're pretty good there. For the Eagles, who now dropped to 4-5, Sam Bradford, who got hurt, 19 of 25, 236 yards, 1 touchdown. Mark Sanchez came in, 14 of 23, 156 yards, and an interception. So altogether, 33 of 48, 353 yards between the two quarterbacks, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. DeMarco Murray continues to struggle a bit this year, 22 carries, 61 yards. Ryan Matthews, 8 for 18. Overall, 36 for 83, which is only 2.3 yards per carry. They're going to have to figure that out, especially if Mark Sanchez is going to be playing a lot. Brent Selleck, the tight end, 4 receptions, 134 yards. Zach Ertz, 7 for 68. DeMarco Murray, 6 for 58. The only touchdown was Josh Huff's, and he had 3 receptions for 23 yards. Sam Bradford fumbled twice. They were not lost. Jason Kelce fumbled once, but it was not lost. 4 sacks for the Eagles, no interceptions. And nothing really of note in the kick return game. 2 returns, both by Josh Huff and Darren Sproles for 51 yards. So actually 25.5 yards per return is pretty good. Caleb Sturgis missed a field goal. Alright, so the Eagles, again, just as we were discussing with the Redskins, who wanted to move to 4-5, the Eagles dropped to 4-5, but they're 4-5 nonetheless. And they'll see what they can do, if they can pick up any games on the Giants in the bye week. The Dolphins, again, in the AFC, certainly at 4-5, you're right in the thick of things in the wild card, so they're going to continue to look to improve. Hopefully now they're back on the right track. They had won the 2 and then lost 2 after firing Joe Philbin, so they're going to see if they can put some consistency together and move forward. Certainly they're playing Dallas next week. That is a team that's on the downslide, but Tony Romo is coming back, so we'll see if Miami can take advantage of how poorly Dallas is playing and start to get rolling again. And Philadelphia, we'll see how they move forward, how long Sam Bradford is out. It looked like it was a concussion. Certainly Mark Sanchez does turn the ball over a lot, but that's nothing they should be too unaccustomed to, considering they have had Sam Bradford playing quarterback this year. The Steelers thumping the Browns, whose season is really getting away from them, 30-9. Cleveland drops to 2-8. Johnny Manziel, 33 of 45, 372 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Did take 6 sacks, though, but probably one of his better games as a pro, and especially considering they didn't run the ball well. Manziel was the top rusher, 3 for 17. Duke Johnson Jr., 4 for 10. Overall, 14 carries for 15 yards. Not going to get the job done. Travis Benjamin continues to play well this season, 7 receptions, 113 yards. Brian Hartline, 6 for 77. Andrew Hawkins 7 for 69. Gary Barnidge 6 for 51 and a touchdown. So we saw Johnny Manziel had big numbers, and you see it reflects in the receiving game. Andrew Hawkins lost the fumble. Johnny Manziel also lost the fumble, and Kwan Williams recovered a fumble. So Manziel had 2 turnovers, the fumble and the interception. 1 sack. Jordan Poyer had an interception. Duke Johnson Jr., 2 returns for 52 yards. That's 46 yards per carry. Marlon Moore, 2 for 48, which is 24 yards per carry. Overall, a perfect 4 for 100, which is 25 yards per carry. Pretty good. But you also don't want to be returning that many kicks in a game, because it means the other team is scoring. Ben Roethlisberger did somehow manage to come in for Landry Jones, who got hurt. He went 22 of 33 for 379 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. DeAngelo Williams, 17 for 54. Altogether, the team was only 21 rushes for 60 yards. Neither team ran the ball well. Pittsburgh at least accomplished something going forward with the run game. Big day in the passing game. Martavius Bryant, 6 for 178. That's 29.7 yards per reception. 1 touchdown. Antonio Brown continues to have a very good season. You really got to consider Antonio Brown for MVP. 10 for 139. 2 touchdowns. Martavius Bryant lost a fumble. DeAngelo Williams and Jacoby Jones fumbled, but they were not lost. And Arthur Moats and Jarvis Jones recovered fumbles. They had the 5 sacks. It's just strange why it says 5 sacks for the Steelers, but it shows that Manziel was sacked 6 times. Mike Mitchell had an interception, and nothing of note in the kick return game. So I'm assuming both of these teams are going on bye, since it's the last week of byes, at least I believe, coming up. Pittsburgh now 6-4, so they're looking to stay in the inside track in the wild card. Cleveland, let's see if they can develop Johnny Manziel the rest of the year. It is only his 2nd season. There's been a lot of turmoil with him early on in his career, but a game like this, if you can start getting him rolling the rest of the season, then hopefully things can start to work out for Johnny Manziel. We'll see if that will happen. But we certainly hope the best for him, and his playing time should increase the rest of the year, and hopefully he can build off this game. The game of the week, and by week I mean WEAK, the Jacksonville Jaguars moved to 3-6. Baltimore drops to 2-7. As the Jaguars defeated the Ravens 22-20. Blake Bortles 22 of 45, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. TJ Yeldon continues to be decent in his rookie season, 18 carries for 61 yards. Blake Bortles had 2 carries for 25 yards, altogether 22 of 90 for 4.1 yards per carry. Allen Hurns, not really his best game, 5 for 62, 1 touchdown. Allen Robinson, 5 for 51 and a touchdown. Tyson Alau and Nick Marshall both recovered fumbles. 1 sack. Devon House had 2 interceptions. Nothing of note in the kick return or punt return games. And a field goal was missed by Jason Myers. Joe Flacco, 34 of 45. 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Justin Forsett, 14 of 53. Javoris Allen, 5 for 19. Overall, 21 of 89, 4.2 yards per carry. Kamir Aiken, the top receiver, 7 for 73. Kyle Juszczyk, 5 for 47. Crockett Gilmore, 4 for 42. Max Williams, 4 for 40. Chris Givens, 4 for 37. All 3 of those guys had touchdowns in the receiving game. Joe Flacco lost a fumble, so he had 3 turnovers. Jeremy Ross also lost a fumble, so altogether the team had 4 turnovers, and just showing why Baltimore is just 2-7. 3 sacks. Ladarius Webb did have an interception. Raheem Mostert had a return of 50 yards in the kick return game, and Jeremy Ross had 4 returns for 54 yards in the punt return game, so not bad there. Justin Tucker missed a field goal, which obviously looms large when you lose a game by 2 points. This game, it was lost. Baltimore had a face mask penalty, which gave Jacksonville an untimed down. It was on a sack, the face mask was, which would have ended the game. The 15 yards in the untimed down allowed Jacksonville to kick a 50-plus yard field goal to win the game. We had talked about this earlier with Baltimore. They had won a lot of games finding ways to win in the past, and it looks like it's coming back to bite them this season. And you just hope it doesn't bite them for future seasons. Jacksonville now moves to 3-6. They got 7 games left. You would like to look at it as a Jaguar in the organization and probably as their fans. If they could go 4-3 the rest of the way, at least play above 500 for the remainder of the season, would put them at 7-9, and certainly give them something to build off going forward. And even at 3-6, you really can't even discount them in the wild card. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't want people to get the impression that I'm implying it will. But just look for Jacksonville. That's how I would look at it if I'm the organization and their fan base, if they can play above 500 the rest of the way. Minnesota going to Oakland, winning their fifth straight game. They're really starting to impress this year as they move to 7-2. It was 30-14 over the Oakland Raiders, who dropped to 4-5. Teddy Bridgewater, 14 of 22, 140 yards, one touchdown, no interceptions. Now, Bridgewater, we had discussed whether the shackles would be taken off him. Now, you really can't judge it off of yesterday. He was coming off that concussion. So, but, all season long, it looks like Norv Turner's really held him back. I think that's going to be what could cost Minnesota this season if they continue to hold Teddy Bridgewater back. I would start letting him throw the ball soon. But moving on, Adrian Peterson, monster day, 26 carries, 203 yards, 7.8 yards per carry, one touchdown. Teddy Bridgewater, 2 for 23. Altogether, 33 of 263, 8 yards per carry, and one touchdown. So they were just gashing Oakland's run defense. Receiving, Stephon Diggs, their top receiver, 2 for 46. Mike Wallace, 1 for 22. So, again, not much in the passing game. I guess if you keep running the way Adrian Peterson is, you don't need to pass. But teams are eventually going to shut down Adrian Peterson, especially in the playoffs. So, we'll see how that develops the rest of the year. 2 sacks. Terrence Newman had 2 interceptions. Cordero Patterson had a 93-yard kick return for a touchdown. And nothing much in the punt return game. Blair Walsh did miss 2 field goals. Derek Carr, 29 of 43, 302 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Latavius Murray, 12 carries for 48 yards. Overall, 19 carries for 84 yards, which is 4.4 yards per carry. They were down, so they were down 10-0 after the first quarter, so you really have to kind of abandon the run game at that point. Amari Cooper, 5 for 79. Michael Crabtree, 4 for 55. Michael Rivera, 6 for 46. Rivera fumbled. It was not lost. 4 sacks, no interceptions. Taiwan Jones was good in the kick return game. 24.2 yards per carry, 145 yards. But again, you don't want to be returning 6 times because that means you gave up 6 scores. Nothing of note in the punt return game. No field goals were kicked. So Minnesota, they have Green Bay coming to town next week. That's a big game for both teams. Minnesota can look to put the Packers away. Take a 2-game lead with 6 games left. Wouldn't necessarily put the Packers away, but certainly give them a tough hill to climb. Oakland now drops to 4-5. They've lost 2 straight, and they've got to turn it around quickly to get back into playoff contention. The Patriots continue to stay perfect on the year. They are now 9-0. They beat the Giants 27-26. Giants dropped to 5-5. Julian Edelman broke his foot. We don't know how long he'll be lost, but reports are he will not, and I repeat, will not be lost for the season as of right now. Tom Brady, 26 of 42, 334 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. LeGarrette Blount, 19 carries, 66 yards, 1 touchdown. Overall, 23 of 77, 3.3 yards per rush in the running game, not too effective. Rob Gronkowski, 5 for 113. Danny Amendola, 10 for 79. Gronkowski had a touchdown. Brandon LaFell, 2 for 66. Julian Edelman, 4 for 53. Tom Brady fumbled twice, lost one of them. Justin Coleman recovered a fumble. 3 sacks for the Patriots. Danny Amendola, 4 for 71 in the kick return game. He did have 2 returns for 84 yards in the punt return game, an average of 42 yards per return, so very effective there. Eli Manning, 24 of 44, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Rashad Jennings, 11 for 39. Arlen Darkwa, 5 for 15. Altogether, 23 of 80, 3.5 yards per carry in the run game. You'd like to see the Giants establish the run a bit more. Odell Beckham Jr., 4 for 104 and a touchdown. Also dropped a touchdown pass, which I thought was a touchdown and probably would have sealed the game for the Giants. In the end zone. However, that's how the cookie crumbles because that's how bad the officiating is in the NFL. Dwayne Harris, 6 for 82, 1 touchdown. Eli Manning lost a fumble. Rashad Jennings and James Moore also fumbled, but they were not lost. And Marcus Kuhn recovered a fumble. 3 sacks. Tremaine McBride had an interception. Nothing really of note in the kick or punt return games. So the Giants, they will move on the bye week. They might be kicking themselves for not putting this division away when they had the chance. Teams like Washington and Philadelphia can both tie them with victories next week, and I believe that would knock the Giants to third place if both teams would win. But they're still in good shape, even at 5-5 in that division. The Patriots now 9-0. They continue to find ways to win, and just going to keeping on. That's what the Patriots do. Very well run organization, and it's showing why they're undefeated this year. Kansas City went to Denver and beat the Broncos 29-13. Kansas City quietly is back to 4-5 and putting themselves right back in contention in the AFC wildcard race. After those 5 straight losses that dropped them 1-5, they are now up to 4-5 after 3 straight wins. Denver drops to 7-2. Alex Smith, 17 of 31, 204 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. More of his efficient games, but he did have 14 incompletions. Charcandrick West, 24 of 69 for a touchdown. Alex Smith, 6 of 33. Altogether, 32 carries, 106 yards, 3.3 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. Charcandrick West, 3 for 92 in the receiving game and a touchdown. DeAnthony Thomas, 4 for 37. Kansas City did not fumble. They had 5 sacks. One of them knocked Peyton Manning out of the game. And they did have 5 interceptions. We'll get into Peyton Manning in just a minute. Marcus Peters, again, my pick for Rookie of the Year, had an interception. He's been playing very well. Eric Berry, an interception as well. Sean Smith, Josh Marga, and Ron Parker had the rest of the interception. Nothing really of note in the kicker punt returns. Cairo Santos, the kicker for Kansas City, was 5 of 6. For the Broncos, Brock Osweiler was the top passer because he came in and replaced Peyton Manning. I don't know if he was hurt or they just benched him. 14 of 24 for Osweiler, 146, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Peyton Manning, 5 for 20, 35 yards, no touchdown, 4 interceptions. Ronnie Hillman, 11 for 42, 3.8 yards per carry and a touchdown. Brock Osweiler, 3 for 18. Overall, 16 for 69, 4.3 yards per rush, and 1 touchdown. Demaryius Thomas, 7 for 71. Cody Lattimore, 3 for 30. Vernon Davis, the newly acquired Vernon Davis, 2 for 19 in the receiving game. Peyton Manning fumbled, but it was not lost, so he avoided 5 turnovers. 2 sacks, no interceptions, no kick returns, and the punt return was 1 for 11 yards. So, for the Chiefs, just quickly, we talked about their secondary, especially with Marcus Peters. They can be very dangerous, and they're continuing to try to right the ship after a very difficult 5-game losing streak. For Denver, Peyton Manning, we've discussed all season if this could be the end. Certainly, you would look at a game like this and say it might be the nail in the coffin. We'll see what happens. He has a plantar fascia injury, so we'll see if he gets some time off, and then maybe he can come back refreshed. But as of right now, it is not looking good for Peyton Manning. They might still be able to hold on to this division, but it might be an early out in the playoffs for the Broncos. And the Sunday night game, Arizona Cardinals very impressively went to Seattle and beat the Seahawks 39-32. Cardinals are now 7-2, Seahawks 4-5, so the Cardinals have a 3-game lead in that division. Carson Palmer, 29 of 48, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's 363 yards. Andre Ellington, 5 for 61. Chris Johnson, not good, but effective enough in the running game. 25 of 58. Overall, 33 of 117, 3.5 yards per carry. The 1 touchdown was Andre Ellington's. He had a big run, but Chris Johnson, 2.3 yards per carry. But against that defense, that's a tough defense to run against. At least they stuck with the run game, and he did, average something on the ground. Larry Fitzgerald, 10 for 130. He's quietly had a big year late in his career. Michael Floyd, 7 for 113, 2 touchdowns. Carson Palmer did lose 2 fumbles. They only had 1 sack. Tyrann Mathieu had an interception. Altogether, 5 for 101 in the kick return game, so you don't want to be returning the ball 5 times, but they did outscore, so, no pain, no gain, I guess. Patrick Peterson, 3 for 29 in the punt return game. Russell Wilson, one of his poor games as a pro, 14 of 32, 240 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Marshawn Lynch can't really get on track this year, but uh, Seattle was down early in this game, so they had to kind of abandon the run. Russell Wilson was the top rusher, 6 for 52. That's 8.7 yards per carry. Marshawn Lynch, 8 for 42, 5.3 yards per carry and a touchdown. Thomas Rawls, 2 for 19. Altogether, 18 for 115, just 6.4 yards per carry. But again, they were down for a lot of this game, so they really had to abandon the run. Doug Baldwin, top receiver, 7 for 134 and a touchdown. Jimmy Graham, 3 for 41. Russell Wilson fumbled, but it was not lost. KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner both recovered the Carson Palmer fumbles. 3 sacks. Earl Thomas had an interception. Tyler Lockett, 5 for 104 in the kick return game, so good average. But again, just as we discussed, you don't want to have that many returns. And nothing of note in the punt return game. Arizona looks like they've probably put this division away. 3-game lead, already beat Seattle. And I believe they've beaten St. Louis as well. Their division record is fairly stout. So with only 7 games left, it's really going to be tough for a team like Seattle or St. Louis to catch them. Seattle, where they go from here, they've got to set their sights on the wild card, and they got to start winning games fast because they are 2 games back of the wild card leaders right now in Arizona and Green Bay. So they've got to turn it around and get it figured out. We discussed Seattle as possible. This would be a down year with the complacency, and it looks like they just can't seem to get things right. Even after that 0-2 start, they have only gone 4-3, so they still got a lot of work to do. And the season's not lost, but they've really got to get it together right now. All right, so that's the recap of Sunday's Week 10 games, and a little bit, of course, we will give you the preview for tonight's game between the Houston Texans and the Cincinnati Bengals. Be sure to stay tuned for that a little later. Thank you so much.